Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. I'm Cloakin and we just got done seeing a 2-0 victory for SPT over Soul Torturers. They're not out of the woods yet, one more match to go for them, but up next we have third seed from Europe, Team Expert takes on the reigning BlizzCon champions from last year, Ballistix. Let's head over to JC Gillyweed Gluck and the crew at the desk to get their thoughts.
That is right, Kevin. I am back at the helm of the Analyst desk for opening week of the HGC finals, and I am joined here with Skimmy, Grubby, and Kaldor. Now, we just had our first match of Group D, SPT versus Soul Torturers. And Kaldor, you got to cast that one. How'd you enjoy it?
I really liked it a lot, and I think Soul Torturers would have deserved the third game there. They played really well on both maps, I feel, but in the end, SPT was a bit too strong. But I think a third map would have been pretty cool between the two of them. They were very evenly matched.
Yeah, and Grubby, it's great to see the Chinese team, the only remaining Chinese team, SPT, doing so well in this group.
Yeah, they finally get their revenge against Soul Torturers as well. I'm still left to be convinced that they can also take out potentially Expert or Ballistix, but in that match against Soul Torturers, SPT looked as good as their really good HGC China season would have suggested.
Well, let's take a look at the Group D bracket. This is the final group for the group stage. Once we get the two teams going to BlizzCon from here, all we have left is the top 8 teams. We just did see SPT versus Soul Torturers winning 2-0. Now we're going to take a look at Ballistix versus Team Expert. This is an exciting match to get excited for, Skimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of those groups where you're thinking, well, we now get to sort of see what happened in Korea with that bootcamp between both Korea and Europe. And we can sort of see the results. I mean, these teams have been scrimming each other. They've been adapting their drafts, their metas to try and revolve around what works for them, what works for the other side. So to actually get this matchup, we've seen what North America and Korea looks like. Now we get to see what EU and Korea looks like.
Guys down there, what are you most excited about for this series?
Personally, for me, it's to see how Expert shows up, because they are not as confident as you would expect. So first of all, in Korea from the bootcamp, they took a lot from that, and they came here with a lot of confidence. But since then, their scrims have been interesting to say the least against European teams. They still don't trade as well as they were hoping for. They do surprisingly well against MVP Black, though, to an extent where MVP Black says, we hate playing against these guys because we just can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense to us, and we lose most of our games. But at the same time, you would think that gives Expert a massive confidence boost, but against other teams where they thought they should trade better, they're doing not quite as well as expected. So they're hanging in there and saying, like, well, let's see how that group works out. So for me personally, that's what I'm really looking for, which Expert shows up here.
And Grubby, we've got Ballistix, the previous global champion, of course, with BlizzCon, but they've had a lot of changes since we saw them last year.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite teams. They have shaped the meta as we know it in a large part. And they weren't always sure what direction they were going to be having. They had so many world championships. And now here they are, second seed from Korea, but they might just prove to be the most dangerous team. It really depends, though. Their confidence level here going into this tournament is uncertain. They really need this match to ground themselves into the tournament. They feel like they're in a really good shape, but they haven't played against some of these Western teams recently enough.
Yeah, and Ballistix, even though they did win last year, they sort of feel like they're a different team attending BlizzCon for the first time, Skimmy.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really feeling that pressure behind the banner. Once again, you know, being picked up by Ballistix, changing from L5, and you know, that's a bit of a, I suppose, a confidence boost, right? Not having that winner's burden of saying, look, we won last year, we need to sort of represent again. You can almost imagine it's a bit like a lucky charm, right? Being picked up by that same sponsor again. Look how dominating they were leading up into that one. But I mean, back and forth across the board, EU and Korea, all these teams are basically rating, you know, Fnatic, Dignitas, all these different sort of scales. It's interesting to see the result as the series will show us.
But you've got to imagine, Kaldor, that there is still some pressure for this team. And namely, I'm talking now about yesterday, because as we've seen now, being from Korea is not a guaranteed check mark to get you through the group stage.
Yeah, I personally have been pretty critical of Tempest in particular for quite some time, since from all the games that we've seen, they just don't really live up to the other two. But Ballistix and MVP Black, they are two completely different beasts in my opinion. I personally would be very, very shocked to not see Ballistix make it out of the group, and I personally have them as the #1 seed for the group. So I think the execution that we expect from Korean teams to be on a top-notch level is very much so reflected in Ballistix as it is in Tempest, who paid for it yesterday in Group C.
Well, turning our attention to the European team and the only Western team in this entire group, we're talking now about Expert. Expert for a long time has been trying to get to the point that they are now. They finally were able to shrug off being not in the top 3 when they got to go to the Western Clash, and then now here and their first fully international event. Grubby, who stands out to you as sort of the playmaker, the one who will be leading the charge against such a powerhouse as Ballistix?
I mean, I think the 2 players that are taking the most limelight here is Nick, the ranged assassin there, phenomenal Chromie player, gets a lot of respect from the Korean teams as well. And then Bad Benny. The way that he plays tank is significantly different from almost any tank in the world. A lot of respect as well from our resident world champion, Fnatic. Breeze himself from Fnatic says that he looked at Bad Bunny to learn many crucial lessons about how Warrior can be innovated, how the Warrior role can be innovated. So that's really cool.
They are a team that is really flexible in a lot of the different play styles that they can have. Kaldor, how important do you think that's going to be for this group and for this tournament?
I think it's really going to be extremely important for them, especially the drafting, since this is what all the teams that don't deal with them on a weekly basis have stated, that they have problems drafting against them, because ADRD is absolutely not afraid to just completely flip the switch every now and then. And that doesn't only reflect to, hey, I'm all of a sudden going to pick like a Gazlo combo. It didn't go as crazy lately. But sometimes, for example, he will throw out a first pick or a first ban that nobody really expects and really keeps the opponent's team guessing. It goes to an extent where even some of his own teammates say, well, during the draft, we sometimes don't even understand what's going on. And it was incredibly fun to sometimes see Angel during scrims, for example. He talks to other people during the entire time. And then once that the game starts, like, okay, what do we have? What do they have? And that's the first time when he actually sees, like, oh, yeah, I think I like our comp quite a lot here, because he just hands the reign over to ADRD at that point.
Skimmy, do you have a point you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, adaptation really is a big factor at these tournaments, especially at the highest level, being able to sort of adapt to what other regions are doing, especially when you go to a boot camp. They discuss the factor of saying, look, we're going to go over there, we're going to sort of learn what they can do. Why take that risk at the tournament and go, oh, actually, they're a lot stronger than we thought they were in the first place, right? We learn that sort of objective at the get-go. We come into this tournament knowing what we're getting ourselves into. And, you know, they discussed at the last boot camp for the Kiev, for the Western Clash. They worked on team fighting. This time they've gone for the macro. So they're trying to form that more sort of well-rounded picture so that if they do need to go up against these different styles of teams, they know exactly how to counter and how to draft.
Let's get into the Battleground pool, and then Kaldor, you can add on to that. But I want to see where we're going for Game 1 and what was banned. Team Expert has banned Sky Temple, a great choice versus Ballistic Expert. Pretty flexible on the Battlegrounds they ban. And then we have a Towers of Doom ban. That is not as consistent with what we see from Ballistix in the past, especially in their own region. We're going to Tomb of the Spider Queen, chosen by Expert.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add real quickly to what Skimmy was talking about the meta, because when we talk about Dignitas and Fnatic, for example, as they headed towards Korea, they said they needed to learn quite a few things completely differently, whereas Expert stated from the get-go, our own meta was really doing extremely well in Korea. We adapted a few things from the Koreans when we saw a certain combo, a certain pick, a synergy that we didn't really include in our own drafts to the same extent that we now have in our arsenal. But overall, they said we played pretty much what we're comfortable with, and we plan on bringing that not only to the opening week, but also to BlizzCon.
And the main thing Experts said that they felt they benefited from that bootcamp is more team fighting skill and more aggression. They liked where they were at. They were actually even skeptical about how valuable the Korea bootcamp could be, but then ended up learning much in terms of team fight and aggression. But that's only been a little while ago, about a week ago, since they were still in Korea. So can they adapt that fast enough? Or has it been too much of a shock effect, leading to some more difficulty in scrim that you talked about recently, Calder?
My biggest concern at this point is really the doubt that might be in their head right now. Because Koreans usually are very confident in their abilities, and for a very good reason. In any esports, they are all the way up at the top. They have a great infrastructure over there in Korea, and also a very good attitude towards practice and training. And I could definitely see that at this point Expert might be doubting themselves a little bit, have some confidence issues, and that could be reflected in the gameplay. So for me, the first games here is a little bit just to They don't necessarily have to come out crushing the Korean team here, but I just want to see how do they present themselves and what kind of expert are we dealing with for the entire group stage.
Yeah, and I mean, if anything, there might be a level of agitation, be it this is the last day of groups. They've obviously had a lot of preparation leading into this event for the opening week, but now they've come into day number 4. They've seen what other teams have been doing. Obviously, you've had a lot of scrims to practice around with. And scrims, you obviously always got to take it with a grain of salt, right, Grubby? You can't really look at those and say, look, we've beaten this team 10-2. Oh, we're going to absolutely destroy them on the day.
Yeah, in fact, experts said that they scrimmed with Ballistix, which always feels a little weird to me because they're going to meet each other.
Right.
But they went a little bit easier, not showing everything, obviously, since they all know that they're in the same group.
We are ready for this best of 3 between Expert and Ballistix, the number 3 seed in Europe taking on the number 2 seed out of Korea as we start on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Looking there, I see Bad Benny saying he wants to drop the beat, so maybe a roll swap already happening here. He's going to go into the Lucia, perhaps.
I think it's more the reference to Hooligan here. And it's still misquoted. What Hooligan was trying to say was drop the bits, and everybody misunderstood that. He couldn't really express himself properly there, and of course it got lost in translation a bit as well.
So instead of getting some bits to have his team supported, he got mixtapes sent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so important, correct pronunciation.
Still a win, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some really good music in there. Here we are, Medivh banned by Ballistix.
Homework done.
Yeah, homework done. That is something that we criticized a lot of other teams, especially our Chinese contenders here at the tournament, have not really done a lot of homework when it came to North America,
Right.
which was very transparent in the first few days. But of course, Medivh always a huge staple in the lineup of Team Expert with ADRD. In Europe, it's more or less an auto ban against them, especially on the map as Tomb of the Spider Queen, where they get a lot of value. So I really like that Ballistix have researched the team a lot. They scrimmed against them as we heard before, so they are just playing it safe.
I'm expecting a support ban to come in here. They decided to go for the ETC instead, so no mosh pits. We didn't really see too much mosh pit value at this tournament, as you were discussing before, Caddo, during that cast, but the cow was gone.
It's not so much which hero Expert banned as the time which they spent on it that really surprises me. They used the full 45-second time pool, and Medivh could have been a predictable ban. So it's clear that they're going by daily shape and feeling, at least in part, because you could have written all this down on a piece of paper a week ago. If we get Tomb of the Spider Queen and they ban Medivh, we do what? So this part is, to me, interesting. They're going with their heart.
With HGC being banned, the one thing that we also have to talk about, except him being, of course, a fantastic frontliner and bringing a lot of value with mosh pits and the power slides, the rotations, he's oftentimes played when you are trying to head into a hyper carry, because thanks to face melt, he can create a lot of space for his team. He's also a great counter against someone like Garrosh, for example, simply because he can, after a quick pull, always push him away here. So with that, it's already trying to nibble away at potential hyper carry compositions on the side of Ballistix, and I like that approach.
I mean, that's what I was going to say, sort of like leading into my point. We know that SCSC tends to be a big focal point for Ballistix. They like to try and pick him up on the Vala, on the Grey main, hence why I think that Testar first pick is indicative of that. The Tracer Ufa feels a little bit reminiscent of when we had Dignitas play up against Tempest, of trying to deny the Tracer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily if you need it, if you want it, let's just use it.
But we have go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as you said with SCSC, both of the ranged assassins are very high statistically and are the ones to watch out for here. SCSC averages 4.4 kills per game, which is the highest of any HGC player, but Nick tops the charts for both average hero damage per game and average hero damage per minute, so definitely keep your eye on those two.
What I really like here is, so Tracer, of course, is a bit of a deny pick. You see the Tassadar early on, you know that there's very likely a hyper carry play being executed, and on this map, Tracer can absolutely excel. An Expert is confident enough in their abilities to say, we don't need Tassadar to make this work. We've actually seen that more and more happening throughout the tournament here. And Ballistix reacts immediately with Murden, which I think is not really a surprise given how he has risen to the top in the tanks. We already have a good tank banned out in the form of ETC, so that makes a lot of sense. But Ballistix felt forced to go into the early Vala pick here, whereas previously we've oftentimes seen the damage dealer drop down to the bottom picks a little bit more, since you are quite flexible with Vala, Lunara, you can drop a Cassia here as well. But right now, as Tracer is already taken away, they were a little bit worried that maybe Expert is targeting the range damage dealer. So they're playing it safe now and saying we have a very stable start, we have good synergy between the heroes, let's not risk anything here and just play the first game a bit more cautious.
Yeah, because in theory, Expert could have banned Vala, picked Greymane.
Yeah.
Suddenly you find yourself without an amazing Tassadar synergy.
Exactly. And right now, I love the Garrosh ban here because we've just talked about how ETC could potentially set up for that. And on this map, there's value. And if you follow Team Expert, then you know that they have played. They're one of the few European teams that actually plays Garrosh, since most European teams say, we don't really see his value since we are very good drafting around him and playing around him. But Expert is one of the few teams that said, hey Garrosh, you know what? We can actually make him work, and this is one of their favorite maps to pull him out there. So I like what Ballistix is doing, and I'm a really big fan of their bans.
Yeah, honestly, could have seen Garrosh come out in those first 2 picks after the ETC ban. But yeah, the next 2 picks would have been a great option. Now not possible anymore. Expert. They have a lot of special picks that they make work. Chromie, Illidan, Diablo, Medivh. Of course, Medivh is already gone. A lot of options.
I absolutely agree with what you, by the way, just said. I could have seen an earlier Garrosh pick for Expert as well, if not for that Tracer that signaled, hey, we want to have a Tracer composition, the Tassadar pick. So then they had to react, and with Tracer, they just wanted to make sure that they also have a panic button with Uther and the Divine Shield. Now we also have Chromie taken. Very unlikely that we're actually going to see Nyx Chromie in this game. This is most likely going to be AD/RD on the hero and Nick on Tracer. Malfurion being added to that, since we still want to have that double support. And for Tomb of the Spider Queen, Malfurion is one of the best supports by far. He has wave clear, he has interrupt against channels, he's gonna give you the additional lockdown. Like, he is the second support on this map.
My point exactly, and to add to that even further, it gives you the entangling route as well as the Twilight Dream to prevent any sort of all-in dive potential, right? So if they do, on the side of Ballistix now, go for, say, example, a Sonya and a Lucio, that would, to a degree, shut things down. But as you say, the Malfurion, especially the way that we saw Tempo Storm play it as well, acting as almost like a boomkin. You're a poor man's Gul'dan, so to speak.
Very poor, but yeah, he has many aspects to him, Malfurion. Question is now, how do you deal with this team of Expert? It's 3 squishy backliners. Greymane will be the name of the game. Greymane and Rhaegar. We've got the double support comp here with Rhaegar and Tassadar. Greymane and Myrddin can jump in and find the target. A very well-rounded composition by Ballistix that doesn't lean too heavily in really any aspect of the game.
Seems very early game focused if you ask me. A lot of auto attack damage there, looking to try and find some kills, isolate those targets and go for that early snowball.
Well, you can never forget about that level 20 Tassadar. There's power in every aspect of the game flow, I believe. Either Twilight Archon or Force Barriers every 3 seconds. Tassadar is a late game monster. Now Expert needs to pick their warrior. Could see, I would say probably Johanna is most likely.
This is the one time I'm thinking, actually, I like the idea of Johanna. We've been discussing Johanna in the opening few days and thinking, I'm not a big fan of this one. Arthas to a degree, I mean, let's not forget him. Arthas is definitely still available on the board, and he'll usually be your go-to, right, Caldor?
I'm also a bit, like, my initial thought was immediately, okay, Chromie, AD/RD, Tracer, Nick, but there is actually also a scenario where they switch that around and put Zero into the damage position since they don't have the offlaner here. So traditionally...
So Athero, Tracer.
Could actually be a variation, because oftentimes when they have a double support, it's actually AD/RD jumping on that second support. So there's with the hero pool overlap that they have, there's 2 ways how they could approach this, and that's going to have a big impact on how aggressive they are.
So one thing I want to talk about is this composition coming out of Expert is very reminiscent to what we saw Darksider try to do on Brax's holdout. Only adaptation I'm hoping we'll get to see is that slowing stance. There's a lot of point control in those choke spots themselves. So, you know, if the likes of Vala, Myrddin, Rhaegar, even Greymane get too aggressive, there is going to be a lot of punishing potential that Expert can look to try and shift the balance into their favor.
Johanna is sitting at a 1 out of these 6 games that she has been played, only winning 1. How do you guys feel about that Johanna pick here? Do you feel like it suits the composition?
Well, I think it makes sense. I think either Johanna or, strangely enough, Arthas would have worked as well. They're 2 a little bit more passive warriors, but that's totally okay, because Tracer and Chromie don't really need a warrior to go in order to be effective. Tracer is very mobile, Chromie can attack from very far, so you just need a very stable presence, ideally, that can pick up gems, and Johanna does exactly that.
I will say there's one thing though. The reason I prefer the Johanna as opposed to the Arthas is it gives you the wave clear, which they need to be a little bit more reliable. Otherwise, they're relying far too much on the ideas of Malfurion, and even Chromium to utilize her one-shot cooldown, so to speak, on a minion wave. Plus, it gives you the blinding potential. Yes, you can make the argument that Arthas has that sort of slowing capacity, but the blind could and should find some value.
I like Johanna for the reasons mentioned. Wave clear alone, the blinds that Skimmy just pointed out. Another hero, when we're theory crafting, that could have fit here is, for example, Stitches. With Stitches, you could have had the follow-up, you get the hook in, but then you also play a little bit more one-dimensional that you want to be. With Johanna, they have more potential to engage into the opponent, lead with a Blessed Shield, for example, try the Malfurion route. So it's two different playstyles. With Johanna, you're a bit more aggressive. With Stitches, you would have looked for those hooks and isolation kills.
Well, guys, we are ready. Europe takes on Korea yet again. Let's check in with Caleris and Wolf for Game 1.
That's right. Thank you, Gilly. One of the most anticipated fixtures here of the entire group stage as a defending BlizzCon champions goes up against Expert, who has made waves in the past couple of months.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely one of my most excited matchups coming into this tournament. Ballistix looking to be back on point, kind of rising back towards their former BlizzCon champion selves. A lot of Korean teams giving a lot of respect to Team Expert right now. Bad Benny's ETC play, his tank play, and I think this is going to be a great best of 3, man.
Yeah, so do I. We're going to be going into this map in just a few seconds' time. Team of the Spider Queen to determine who's going to take the lead to start things off here. And as I mentioned before, these two teams, extremely high level. When you get to see Ballistix clash against Team Expert here, I'm excited for this one, Wolf.
Oh, so am I. Let's go ahead and jump into this and introduce our blue team here on the left side of the map. It is Team Ballistix, otherwise known as L5. SC is going to be on the Vala. I have Hooligan on Muradin. I have Jungha on Greymane, of course. Will be SDE on the Tassadar. And last but not least, Swoy bringing up the Rhaegar.
Love that they're using the mounts. Love that they've got the sprays, all repping very nicely. To the right-hand side, Curson on Malfurion. We have Bad Benny going to be rocking Johanna. Next up, Athero will be on Tracer. ADRD on Uther. And finally, it's Nick going to be playing the Chromie for Team Expert.
So I want to ask you, where do you sit on the Johanna Stitches debate here? Because I really like the Johanna. I think it's a safer pick. You've got the blinds for the volley. You've got that needed wave clear. I'm a big fan of it.
It's a good question because I felt like both could have fit. Not dissimilar to Kaldor's kind of point of view that we saw there. Obviously, it would have coupled lovely with the Malfurion and things, but he was totally right on the point that it's a bit more one-dimensional.
Yeah, very much a kind of, it gives you the safe opportunities to clear waves, to blind, but doesn't give you opportunities for picks necessarily, especially on this map. Not as easy to get those kills with the Blessed Shield, and it's a double DPS comp for Ballistix, so getting just a single pick or attempting to get that pick on the DPS isn't necessarily going to be what you want.
Yeah, so Team Expert comes into this game to start things off with the less structural damage we take early on, the more powerful our mid-game is going to be, because Nick will have more places to retreat back to if that kind of flank or dive is to come in. And obviously, those ways are limited by taking less structural damage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And on this map, oftentimes because the objective doesn't really push very hard, you can control the first few, and even if you lose the first one, you do keep those forts alive very often. Not going to lose all your walls to the first web weavers, but very passive player from Expert, respecting the fact that their comp does need to keep Chromie alive. Just going to poke where he can, and this is a very even game at this stage.
And Nick will need someone to babysit him throughout all of the early game, because he needs someone, ideally someone like Bad Benny, to go forward, grab those globes for him, and then pull back. So it's a very slow style for someone like Nick in this game.
Yeah, certainly. Odd that we see Ballistix running double DPS. We've seen mostly this been run with the Falstad out of the Asian team so far. Will be the Greymane volley here, so going back to Ballistix roots, just the solo support here. 2 DPSs. They have a lot of wave clear as a result, and that again goes back to that Johanna pick. May have a pick here though.
Oh, did not actually kill that off there. So he keeps himself alive to start things. And Athero, gotta be a bit salty about that one. I felt like he was on the kill there.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. I don't know exactly what happened with that pulse bomb there. Might have actually been a prediction mistake in-game, as it might have looked like in the client it connected, but it did not. We'll never know, but...
I think it was a task shield at the very last second.
Okay.
So...
Very, very survivable there if you have the Tassadar shield, but close call nonetheless there for Swoy. Good supports here coming out for SDE, who said, you know, in his opening interview that he wants to make a name for himself on the Tastar, show how good of a Tastar player he is.
Right.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, get those shields going. If you can negate the damage, it's very nicely done. At the moment, Ballistix at this bottom lane getting a lot of value.
Yeah, doing a lot of damage. Again, that wave clear control they have with Bala, Greymane, Tastar, Rhaegar. I mean, these are 4 heroes that have fantastic wave clear. It's tough for Team Expert to keep up. Just going to see them continue to rotate here very aggressively, knowing that, again, Expert for the time being has to play defensively, has to protect Nick. So there's not much Expert can do to punish this aggressive rotation with the wave clear.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money with that. Ballistix here is orchestrating this very well, and they're just being able to gather up the gems nicely with someone like Rhaegar at the front. As much as his support, he's a great candidate to be able to carry around some of those gems, get them turned in. 26 in at the moment.
Yeah, okay, we're going to see a little bit of a skirmish here, but this is going to just basically be actually the first time I think that Ballistix kind of gets punished for overextending. In fact, we'll have to deal with these minions for just a moment. Team Expert arguably has the better control of the objective. Sure, there's Tastar on the side of Ballistix, but Expert has Shield Glare, has Chromium, Moonfire. That's all I really need to say. It's tough for Ballistix to get turn-ins.
An attempt onto Bad Benny here at the moment. The pulse bomb goes down on Hooligan, but another shield soaks up a lot of it. That's first blood going over to Ballistix. Absolutely destroyed and grouped up on.
Looks like this might be an opportunity for Ballistix to get the first complete turn in here. They have enough carried at the moment with that pick onto Bad Benny. A lot of interruption removed.
And I'll tell you something. If SDE continues the shield saving of cooldowns for when those pulse bombs go down, he will be remembered as a strong Tastar like he wanted at the beginning.
Exactly. And you know, there's been many Korean Tastars criticized in the past. Everyone knows Kyocha back in the spring season. SDE criticized season long for just being a Tastar main. I was like, oh, Tastar's such an easy hero to play, but I think it does take a lot of skill, a lot of understanding of timings. Talk about things like Force Walls and Archons. There's definitely a huge gap between a mediocre Tastar and a pro gamer Tastar like we see here.
Dragon's Eye at 7, I say 7 in inverted commas, has been picked up for Chromie, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So I'm wondering what we get, Temporal Loop or Slowing Sands. I'd much rather Slowing Sands because of obviously the cleanse factor, but also the shields and things like that. You're going to have to really blow someone up fast. And sometimes you see it against double support, but it's like double main support, which can be an answer sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree because you have the ability to just Ancestral the second it's finished there. Pre-Ancestral, it's going to get the heals, the shields you mentioned. I think Slowing Sands is going to give you better opportunities to catch a Murden who's trying to retreat. For example, you have so much CC with the Uther, with the Johanna, if you could slow someone into an area in order to do that. So I think that's the better choice here. We'll see what she ends up picking as that level 8 does come around the corner here.
Taking away all the walls, took down bottom for Athero, putting pressure towards Yonghan. Doesn't quite do anything. So this is where Chromie's going to have to stick mostly to that top map. This is a big dive on Curson. That's a good kill. Ballistix pick up a second.
Very quick rotation through here. When you have a Rhaegar like this too, you can just sweep up real fast. The disruption there in mid drew the attention away. You do see Slowing Sands picked up, as you were saying, you thought was a better choice. But the scary thing for Team Expert right now is 10's right around the corner for Ballistix. This allows them to be aggressive. They don't have enough for a turn-in just yet, but Team Expert somehow needs to prevent that double turn-in without having level 10. They have a window of time they can try to catch up here, but if we see the double turn-in, we're not talking about walls anymore, we're talking about elimination of all Experts' keeps. Or sorry, forts, I should say.
Yeah, that's true.
Big distinction there.
A different layer, different layer. SC going to turn in some gems, or actually moves back, realizing that he is in vision for a moment, and will move away. Nick looking just clean up this hard camp, and this is being saved. Although this invade, he realizes Anathero will capture it. Good moves by Ballistix, good anticipation.
Let's see already what Slowing Sands can accomplish. It slows down these minion waves even, put SC in a very vulnerable position, but now that they can avoid it, they can start poking. They have so much sieging poke on the side of Ballistix with the range they have. Chromie has poke in terms of doing hero damage, and Ballistix has poke to do structural damage with Greymane Bala.
And something that's very important about Chromie, especially Slowing Sands, that is undervalued, I would say, not really kind of referenced much in Heroes of the Storm, is that it actually buys a little bit of time, especially for you on a small map like this, for the rest of your team to get level 10. Imagine if that Slowing Sands hadn't been there, and Ballistix with level 10 just asserts their dominance on mid lane.
That's right. I mean, Greymane just presses W, keeps shooting, and they just keep throwing out those hungering arrows, and eventually this gets worn down to the wave clear you're talking about. So agree completely. It's not just for helping the longer team fights, getting those picks. It can be used against mini waves as well.
Alright, so Hooligan just takes a few shots to the face, will back off, and there is level 10 now for Team Expert. So they're not feeling too pressured as the turning comes down.
I think we're just going to see all standard heroics here. There's no real argument for even the Tranquility. It's just he didn't click it yet. There's the Twilight Dream. You know, the Falling Sword just isn't going to work against this composition. It would be suicidal to try to hard engage into a solo support double DPS.
Unless you had something like Sonya instead of a Tracer to then go for a leap in tandem with it. Yeah. Blast Shield for the win. Oh, sexy! A lot of damage, but not killed off, and that's the cooldown of the Pulse Bomb wasted for now.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, Jungha and the rest of his team were up in the front, just putting pressure onto Nick, so he couldn't get that follow-up shot to actually finish him off. And I like the fact that Swoy is so willing to hold on to the Ancestral. No panic there, very calm and collected, knowing that's not going to be a kill.
Yeah, very, very true. Roots go down on Hooligan, actually takes a lot of damage. He will jump away though. Does he have third wind? No, he doesn't, so it'll take a little while longer for him to actually heal up.
At least for him, he is running that Avatar, you know, unlike Hong Kono, who I think definitely was trying to get famous yesterday with his Stormbolt, or sorry, his Haymakers. It certainly did not work out in the end.
The craziest guy in the game.
Craziest guy in this tournament, potentially, but no longer. Rip 1/3 of Korea. But, you know, I like the build here. It's safe, it's good for the map. You're rotating around, you want to get those hammers out. Obviously, with the poke that Expert is lacking, third wind isn't going to be as useful in most cases. But right now, Team Expert just, again, they need to prevent this turn-in, but they want to do so without losing all their gems. If they fail to stop this turn-in and lose 3 of their members, for example, they might just lose the game as a result because they just have so many carried at the moment. In total, with 41 turned-in, 55 carried. That's a whole nother second turn-in if they can hold on to those.
And there is going to be the full turn-in going down as Team Expert get themselves the Red Web Weavers about to descend in just a moment's time. So Ballistix, how are they going to set up? Looks like pressure on towards the middle at the moment, pressuring back Bad Benny. He throws out his shield, he'll be fine for now.
Yeah, I've noticed this a lot of Western teams. Oftentimes when you get that turn in, you feel like, okay, let's set up to maybe get a pick. They're already posturing back. We can catch them on the retreat. But Ballistix did the opposite. They actually dove in there and tried to punish Expert getting the position. Bad Benny is positioning himself so well, though he's blocking a lot of the damage, and he's just constantly protecting Nick. He's just healing so well, and now these Web Weavers start to hit these walls. This could be Expert because of the experience still stored in these structures, their opportunity to catch up in talent tiers here.
And it's very patient Johanna play. Before the rework came along, you felt like you were pretty much indestructible. You could go and sit in the middle of a lot of members and tank for a while and then run out. Nowadays, Johanna is in a bit of a more vulnerable spot, even though she's still very, very tanky. But you do have to pick your battles very carefully.
You certainly do. Ooh, SDE. Speaking of picking his battles, that was a good pick there by Nick. SDE's going to eat one to the face here, just making sure they can get through. I actually like the Holy Shock for Uther here because it gives you the opportunity to try to get those picks after. Because Chromie can nearly one-shot anybody, but there's sometimes that 10% health left when the Uther just gets the last hit there.
And especially when you're pushing as a Chromie with Web Weavers, you can actually somewhat predict where your opponents are going to be, as Hooligan will get out, because you know that the Web Weaver is going to shoot that Web Blast down. They have to be on either side because they don't want to get hit by the Web Blast. So Chromie has a bit of an easier time pushing whilst Web Weavers are pushing.
It's kind of like Lava Wave. It functions in a similar way, right, in terms of zoning heroes out to try to get picks and try to get that damage done. You see that Ballistix gets another turn in here as Hooligan gets out, but now it's kind of an awkward angle here for Team Expert. Good retreat, though, not going to stick around too long.
Bad Benny burnt his Blessed Shield there, didn't connect with Muradin, so that's going to be down for a little while this turning does go down, trying to chunk this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, again, just using these slowing sands to stop the chunking from coming through here from Jungha, but he's in position now, and I don't think Team Expert can really find a pick here. In fact, they're not really even doing much to this Web Weaver at the moment. As you can see, the split off of SC to the top lane, getting that extra experience, doing that extra direct damage here to grab this top fort. And that scenario I was talking about, all forts down, is now the case here, and even keep walls are being threatened, Polaris. So Team Expert needs to be careful. This is an aggressive move by Bad Benny, but they're just so desperate to keep this wall alive. They're about to be down a talent tier.
You can see that Bad Benny can be on the other side of that wall safe because of the slowing sands. Actually, you know, if Greymane actually wants to jump in and try and put some pressure onto Johanna, then he's in slowing sand, and then it's a hard time. So this is really a smart defense, but they are still losing structures, as you mentioned.
Yeah, you know, I feel like it's in Team Expert's case. I think their comp can get strong as we go to the late game if they can get some good Blessed Shields, get some fights where they're not actually just being shoved so far behind their walls. So just play it safe, play it patient, but look for a big pick. You don't have a dive comp fully because you have this Tracer and Chromie, right? It's not a double support that's designed to allow Tracer to carry like as a single DPS. Kind of trying to defensively poke, maybe you get a defensive pick. You go to the late game with your keeps up, you've still got an opportunity back into the game. However, if you do just kind of sit there and defend and defend and defend, then suddenly you've got 84 gems carried, your keeps get worn down, turn-ins keep hitting you, so it is a bit of a catch-22 problem right now for Team Expert.
And SC's been on par with them. He's been poking just as well as they've been poking, especially when Johanna's been at the forefront of the fights. So, and he's one of the best ranged assassins in the game, so it's fair.
It's tough, you know, with the amount of shielding here and with Ancestral available to try to even Blessed Shield, Chromie combo somebody with a Tracer Pulse. This is very difficult. Uh-oh, Nick's in vulnerable spots here. They're going to switch the targets here, though. Good ice block from Person to stay alive. SC is in trouble. There's the Pulse, and down goes Bala.
Good pick up here for Expert to start things off. Will they get more, though? Slowing sands on Hooligan at the moment. There goes the Blessed Shield, on for 3. Avatar has been popped here. They're still putting pressure on him. Actually interrupted on that Twilight Dream. Not too bad, considering that will pretty much saves Hooligan.
Good Divine as well here to keep him alive. ADRD, though, eventually should fall. We'll have some extra healing to try to heal Curson. Over the wall here, just barely gets out. Cocktail, not enough.
Great turnaround, really good turnaround.
He shouldn't stay here, though. He shouldn't stay here. The next Cocktail could kill him.
Yep.
Oh, that was a close call.
Johanna goes down as well, over at the front there. Unfortunate for Team Expert. Ballistix turned that around so nicely, and it all really began with that interrupt on the Twilight Dream.
It certainly did. The Twilight Dream would have actually, I think, punished Ballistix so hard they would have gotten wiped potentially there, but as it is, they survived. They're going to make a boss play here. 3 still dead, especially those later delayed respawn timers from Team Expert means they're just simply not going to be able to contest. This is a double DPS. Q-Vala build here has just arrived, as you can see. SC, John and them are going to make quick work of it. Solo DPS Vala or Graming, this might have been a riskier move, but an Expert just has to sit back and defend. Ballistix is going to try to send this boss with a minion wave and a turn-in. So this is going to be pretty fearsome what we're about to see here. This could be a push to end. And again, Expert has done good at mitigating the damage on these pushes, but I mean, when we're talking a boss and all the poke they have, can they really stop this from going directly to the core? I'm not so sure.
And this timing.
Yeah, perfectly timed so that it comes with the Web Weavers. Look at how this is going to work out. Let's watch this Web Weaver come. They're going to come like basically in step, like the boss and the Web Weavers are going to be in tango here, like they're on the dance floor.
These two are the king and the queen of Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Oh, look at this.
Look at it.
I mean, this is just brilliant. Comes in right here at the front. Second, the health bar appears. Boom, right there together. Such good timing from Ballistix, a team that's known for macro play.
This is a lot of pressure now. Team Expert has to try and hold on at this defense. They know the other 2 lanes, not as important right now with this boss pushing. It's almost guaranteed to keep. Hooligan goes in, tries to launch with the Stormbolt, doesn't connect.
It's so difficult to get through the front of Hooligan, who I don't think has even had to Avatar a single time this game. He's blocking Chromie's DPS here, blocking those shots. Tracer's finding having a tough time finding an angle.
Hooligan doesn't connect again. Uncharacteristic here as Hooligan misses a few times. Web Weaver, though, blasts Bad Benny. Half health at the moment. They're going to march on towards the core here. They know they've got a lot of health still on this boss.
Okay, with the Avatar popped here, he does directly go to the core, now trying to zone out Bad Benny, who is the target. Divine Shield has to be used. We do see that Blessed Shield as well coming through, but not really gaining them anything. Boss will go down here. It looks like Ballistix wants to make a play to retreat south here towards that mid-keep. Maybe they'll take it out on their way out. Looks like they're just going to play a little bit safer.
Seems like they should be able to get out. SDE with a preemptive shift there, dimensional shift, so he can get away from the shots that were raining in from Chromie. And overall, a good pickup by Ballistix. They did exactly what they needed to do, and they haven't lost anyone yet.
I feel like the story of this game has just been Expert is playing so safe and so well. It's just, unfortunately, that's not good enough. You know, we could talk about how good their defense is. A lot of other teams would have died to that push with a perfect time boss with those Web Weavers that were spawning at the keep wall. But Expert survives. However, what do they gain? What tools do they have?
This play is fantastic from Ballistix, going around the corner, striking at ADRD, and he will fall. No anticipation of that. Expert was caught completely off guard.
Just understanding the lack of vision. Okay, looks like SC will survive for now. Understanding the lack of vision there, because all the Web Weavers pushed the minion waves out, there was no way for Expert to know where they were. With the respawns coming into this, how many heroes on the map, and now at 17 minutes, all 3 keeps are dead. Hooligan's gonna go down. Maybe they can make a play here.
Yeah, maybe they can. Like, trying to blind them as much as possible at the moment. We have Grammy very, very low. Zhongha is gonna have to back on out. Nick looks for the connection. Just a little too far.
Here's the reveal. They're gonna try to get one more shot potentially. I think he's too far away.
Too far, yeah. Too far. So they will get away.
Well,
And
I mean, that was kind of a crazy play. Jungha was willing to turn around there despite not having the Ancestral. They were far enough away. And now, like, Claire's, what does Expert do? They put their backs against the wall. No keeps. They have got enough for a turn-in, but they can't contest it because they have level 20 against them. Do they just sit back again and defend for 20? I feel like it's not going to gain them anything.
we've seen crazier recoveries, but the one thing that is glaring to me is that Tassadar has negated any effort, apart from 1 kill on Valor, he has negated any effort that we've seen Chromie and Tracer have for a blow-up.
Yeah.
SDE has been on point with that, so they need to somehow bait a target to be shielded and then try and punish another one.
I mean, they know Ancestral's down. They saw it. Maybe if they could try to get a kill onto SDE himself, it could win them the longer fight. They could bait a dimensional shift, as you're saying.
But how do you kill a Tassadar?
Yeah, it's so tough, man. He's going to be able to be shielded. He can shield himself. He can dimensional shift. He can be healed. Ancestral's going to be up to 25. This team just doesn't have a good initiation minus the Blessed Shield to start a fight off right. They have a very defensive setup, and Ballistix is abusing it with the poke. They have 2 ranged DPSs, the range from Tassadar. Look at all this Side Storm damage. Now they've got Twilight Archon. They might just do, as we saw Tempest do yesterday, walk to the core and end with that Twilight Archon.
An attempt at damage on Hooligan, but it's going to be fraught with danger for Bad Benny, as he has to walk through 2 Side Storms, and when you have to do that, you're basically taking like 700
There's
damage.
just so much range damage, it's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even agree with the Lightning Bond choice here with how passive they're playing. Like, may have wanted to do something else there. Might have wanted to get Wolf Run for fast rotations because we're not seeing aggressive play here, not getting much value out of the Lightning Bond. It's just simply moving forward, posturing. Now they've got the catapults here. You can see Nick is in the top lane trying to clear that, and I don't know, man. Look at the Side Storm damage coming through. They're looking for picks, so they want to end this right now. They're closing the door on this game.
I mean, Ballistix literally wants to go for the throat with Unleashed at level 20 as well. Get you that additional charge if they just want to smash through this competition.
Which means Nick has to be so far back, which means it's tough for him to get damage, and you can see a little bit done here, but it's just simply not enough. That needs to be paired with a Pulse Bomb. As we saw, the 2 kills in this game were situations like that. Here comes Hooligan.
Yeah, looking for the lockdown, and that's going to be very quick on Bad Benny. He falls fast, as that's going to be ADRD also being pressured. A combo comes in. He almost dies, but it's not going to be enough. Uther is going to be the next to fall.
Okay, he has the ability to just keep his Twilight Archon going. I think this is going to be core. Too much damage here. SDE does go down. That'll be the 3rd kill for Expert, but they fall here in game number 1. Good rage, good control of the poke, safe play from both teams, and that's why we have a game that went pretty long. We're talking nearly level 20 for both teams, but only 11 kills on the board because of the passive nature of these 2 teams. But with the compositions chosen, I think that won out for Ballistix. They had more poke, and it was just defend, defend, defend for Expert.
To me, they had more control over every single fight. With the blow-up potential on the side of Team Expert that was thwarted again and again and again, I feel that Expert moving forward needs to go for something that's a more sustained team fight. And in those moments, look for mistakes on the side of Ballistix.
Would agree with you there, Caleris. Let's see what our desk has to say about it, though, as we throw it back over to see what they think about that game number 1.
Thank you guys. Tomb of the Spider Queen is dead and gone, with Ballistix getting a victory 1-0. Skimmy, it kind of felt like it was a slow game blown open by just one single play.
I mean, it felt almost a bit like both of these teams trying to feel each other out. Okay, what have you got? What have we got? And you could feel there was a lot of tension that was there, and it sort of all unleashed that one big fight around that top hand, and they go for the kill initially. It looked so good as a result of that kill by Aethera on Tracer, trading out SCSC on the Valor, but then suddenly the Twilight Dream gets interrupted. Hooligan survives. They turn things around. They get the kills. The gems are gone. They get the gem hand in. They get the top boss, and without any gems, without any level 20 catch-up potential, very limited options for Expert to try and get themselves back into that one. And that was their map choice, which, as I'm sure you're going to say, Caldor, is what you do best.
Yeah, like Tomb of the Spider Queen is definitely a map where Expert usually excels, and I'm not too unhappy with it. As I said, for me it was I want to see how they perform, and not necessarily that they have to win the game. You can lose and still make a good showing. And as you said, it was in the end, it was an interrupted Twilight Dream that decided most of it. If the Twilight Dream goes through, Meridian probably falls. You have a 5 versus 3, and the more important part, you don't lose. I think it was 40 gems that they lost at that moment. So overall, the Koreans are extremely strong, as expected. Fantastic control by them and great play. But Expert, you can see that there are moments where they can try and turn a game and maybe take a map here. So pretty solid first game.
Grubby, the drafting for Ballistix seemed like they had every single point under control.
Now we're guessing here, right, on the analysis desk. We don't know what they're thinking, but you look at it and you see Expert. They took a long time to think about their first ban. Could have been Tassadar, which is a really popular ban. Could have been ETC. And then when ETC got removed, you think, you know, maybe they want Garrosh. Garrosh is easily interrupted, his combo by ETC. But then when Tassadar comes out, it's like, well, we're not going to give Tassadar Tracer, not to SCSC, not to Ballistix. So then they feel compelled to take Tracer. And from there on, it looked like the entire draft was controlled by Ballistix. Still, there were some cool moments by Expert. Level 12 versus 13 moment where we had a lot of poke wars, a lot of turn-in denials from both teams, where it looked like Expert was up to scratch together there with Ballistix, but Ballistix just played a little bit too solid.
I think the most important part for me personally is just the fact that usually you're going to a series, you should know what your draft and your preparation going into this should be, right? So the fact that they take the full 60 seconds to go, I guess it's ETC.
That's the weird one.
It seems a bit bizarre to me, right? Because then as you say, Gilly, the systematic of like, we go Tester, you're forced to go for this one. You want that Garrosh, we're not going to let you have it. It seemed like